I wanted to set that up to kind of give you some ideas on how to work the interface to the way you like it, right? And then I wanted to show you something else, which is how to turn this into an animation, right? And what I'm talking about is that you can have the undo memory, right? All the steps that you draw are kind of going into a sequence of images called the undo memory stack, or the sequence of images in undo memory. And what I mean is something like this. And by the way, one more change that we might want to do, since we do have enough room, what I could do is make this a two-column toolbar. And that's really recommended if you are, again, on a low resolution screen. You could go two-column toolbar. That way, you do fit this entire thing on a low resolution screen. And then on top of that, it's a little bit easier to find that erase button right here in the middle, as opposed to going all the way down to the lower right. All right, if you're sitting comfortably on the couch and you have a tablet and you have to move your hand all the way to the lower right, your elbow is going to hit the couch back. It's going to be a bit awkward, and so this is what might help also in that sort of workflow consideration. All right, so now let's talk about the undo memory and how to turn this into a memory into an animation. Okay, so basically what happened, I've been doing a lot of dabbles here, right? And I can do an undo here. I can click on this and I can see back in time all the different things that I've done as I switched from one image to another. And then also at some point I can see the stages that I've gone through while drawing them. Here it is. Here are the hands and the fingers that I was drawing. Now, depending on how much memory you have allocated for undo, you may not be able to see them all again. But if you have the maximum amount, there's a good chance you'll be able to see quite a number of frames that you have drawn, or that represent the undo memory. So if you look here under settings, you want to make sure that under the general tab, your memory options is set to the maximum here, 256 megabytes, and make it so, and so that way you have a good amount of memory available. And what's going to be in that memory is the following. Let's say you start with a drawing, right? That's kind of a sketch of a face, and I'm doing intentionally kind of a couple of loose brush strokes here, right? And then I'm drawing the eyebrows, and then I'm drawing big googly eyes, and then I'm drawing cat eyes, and then I'm drawing, I don't know, it's an alien creature from outer space, and it's got some little antennas, and resistance is futile. All right, so I've drawn a whole sequence of images, and I can go and undo that, right? But what if I want to actually animate that? I can right-click here to actually redo that, or rather go back forward in the undo memory stack. And when I go beyond this thing here, I'm reaching back to the beginning of the stack, right? So it's sort of a or I might be in untouched territory, in memory that hasn't been allocated or stored image yet. But I can definitely go. I can definitely see, using this as an animation. So here's how you do that. You go to Filter, and there's an animated collection here, and there is the undo buffer to animation. Right? That will take the undo buffer, the image sequence that's in the undo memory and the undo buffer. You will take that and convert it to an animation. Right? This will create an animation from the undo buffer. Okay, that. And boom, now we have the entire sequence of brush strokes into the undo buffer. Now, only as much as fits in your memory, right? And of course, if you have a very high resolution image here, it's not going to fit thousands of frames. So even here, I'm already, I think, reaching a little bit of a limit. But look at that, I got a nice little animation. Right? And I could definitely do a couple of things from that. For instance, I could make this a little bit smaller in order to add more frames. I don't know how many I've got here. Oh, 64. I could actually probably do more than that. Let's see, for instance, the one thing. This last one is the same as the one here at the very beginning. So this one we probably could go and delete. And then hold on a second. So we have this animation now, and this very last one I'd like to hold a little bit longer, right? And then this one here at the very beginning, I want to add one more frame that's going to be blank. So I'm going to go here, insert a frame, and go to that one. So the first two frames are identical. I'm going to clear this one. We can click on that, or we can just click the erase button here. And then we can go and hold this one a few times simply by duplicating it. So I'm going to go to set, let's see, where's my first frame? There it is. Right click on that, right? And then copy this frame and right click again and insert before the current frame. So we now have 2 times this blank frame here, and then insert a few times. So you can do that 3, 4, 5 times, and you got a few more frames that this blank is going to hold. And we do the same thing at the very end here. So now this one will use a slightly different technique. I'm going to make sure we have this last frame here at least copied once. So I'm going to go and copy that frame and then copy it or insert it before the current. There you go. So now we have this twice. And I'm going to set the in marker here, go to the last one, go to the out marker. So both of these are now selected, and I can go to copy this entire block. That allows me to insert this block, insert the block before the current frame, and do therefore a little bit faster, do 2 of those as I'm inserting them. And so this one is right here, it starts, and then we have this. So I'm going to go now set the out marker here, and I'm going to copy that again, copy this block, and insert the block here. So you can see, right click here again, set the out marker, and then copy the block and insert again. And every time I'm doing that, it inserts a little bit more, and so it's kind of exponentially growing here. So copy the block and insert. So that's a trick to go a little bit faster rather than copying 1 frame at a time. You go 2 and then 4 and then 8 and so on, so it goes a little bit faster. But the end result is the same thing, right? What we wanted is to simply hold this frame a little bit longer. And so here we go. Now we have this little animation recreated, and that's that. And of course, you can take this even beyond. Let's say, for instance, you want to say, okay, it's going to go a little bit smaller. Let's make it 640. Let's go 640 by 360. Well, you know, it's a slightly different aspect ratio, so let's keep it like that, 388. We can talk about cropping that later on. And what we'll do is simply play this animation and now slow it down. What I want to do is actually make it go slower. And you can do that in 2 different ways. One is to simply time stretch here on the frames, right-clicking on this toolbar. And then the other one is to use the motion prediction module, which does some funky stuff when the animation is not really predictable. And that's actually sometimes that's fun. So let's take a look at both cases. Okay, so let's use just to see one more time that workflow with storing an animation before we keep working at it. Let's go to the animation menu and store this animation to disk, because we don't want to waste too much memory for that. And now you can see here's this animation, that one's stored. And what I'll do is start by frame blending, and I'm going to right click here on this animation and time stretch. That's a frame blended time stretch, and I'm going to say exactly how many I want. Let's say I want 4 times as many, times 2 again. So I have 336 frames coming out of that with frame blending. Right, and you could do that also without frame blending, just to compare. But when you do the with frame blending, it's doing a little bit of a transition, and it seems like a nice smooth animation. Okay, so that one's probably pretty decent. That one's probably pretty good. All right, so that is one. And let's see another way. So how do we restore the old animation? Simply click here. That will restore that from the stored animation. That will reinstall this animation, and now we have the oh, let's do it one more time with the frame, with the time stretch, but this time without frame blending, right? So times 2, we have a total of 300 and something frames. Okay, that. And so now when you play this one, it doesn't do the frame blended approach, and you don't see it gradually appearing, those lines. It's a sudden appearance. And you can actually notice a difference. You know, if you had the old one still, you would see here when it's animated that it just suddenly shows, it pops those frames just suddenly. Those lines are suddenly showing. But the whole thing is slower because we did the time stretch. We duplicated each frame 4 times. All right, and so now let's take a look at one more technique. I'm going to store this one just for comparison. So store this one to disk also. And there it is. So let's restore this one. That's the short original. And now I'm going to use the motion predicted approach. So let's go to filter, animated, motion prediction module. And with the motion prediction module, we know that sometimes makes even better quality transitions, but sometimes not. And it depends on what's happening in the topology of the pixels or of the image itself. And in this case, I think if we go by 4, we'll roughly get the same amount of frames. Not exactly, but roughly the same amount of frames. And we can try to do the fudge factor. Let's leave it alone by default here. Undo this and just go. So we get about 329 frames, and it's actually fairly decent too. It's going so fast that you really can't tell too much, but if you were to slow it down, you would see a little bit of twirly, gnarly action and interaction and changes like wavelets or something. And that's in the nature of the algorithm for motion prediction. It's not always desirable. In this case, it may actually look cute, or it may just not be noticeable. So let's do it actually even slower. Let's make it 9 times that many frames. Let's see what that looks like. 739. Yeah, sometimes you can tell it kind of flows. All right, so let's do that. Let's use this one. Dry run off and go. And so that's going to create more frames, which makes the animation slower. And almost done. Copy that. There you go. We can close this. And let's store this animation too, so we have access to a stored copy back and forth as we compare the results. Right, so this one here, the motion predicted one. Oh, one thing we need to remember, let me erase this one. The motion predicted one does actually have one other side effect too, which is the last frame is the same as the first frame, or the other way around, right? The first frame that you see here is actually the same as the last frame. So what you want to do is ditch this one, get rid of the first one here, and now you have something you want to look at and analyze. So here is where you might see a little bit of an interesting behavior coming from that motion prediction. You can see it's kind of swimming. See how it's kind of on the side here, and it's gradually moving towards this way. Well, that's a bit of a fat line here. Let's go smaller. But you'll notice this line here, it's going to kind of come roughly ending around here. Right? Let's see. There it is. See how it's kind of moving? And that's really the motion prediction module algorithm doing that, because it wants to find, and it really can't. This line doesn't exist yet, right? It wants to find it, and well, it says, well, the white is white, but there's something black appearing, so it has to kind of come from somewhere. And it's meant to find it sort of in a motion-based interpolation. So it works great when things actually are moving. But it's so fast that this is not disturbing either. It's actually pretty useful. It's kind of fun. Look at the eye. Look at the eye here, kind of changing shapes. Right? Sometimes it makes some really funky stuff that's actually cool stuff, or gives it a little twist. Probably on the text too, I would think, because it's very fast. Yeah, look at the R. Look at the R. Looks like the R is growing. That's a nice little side effect, almost like a little benefit here. You know, a little perk for using the motion prediction module. You see, you get the resistance to grow here. We have a growing resistance. Okay, I think we're going to win this revolution after all. So, uh, so that's basically it. I wanted to show you a couple of things for laying out your, a couple of options for laying out your user interface, change the colors to your liking, maximize the available screen real estate, and you know, then essentially really start focusing on what you want to do in the first place, which is to sketch and draw and waffle and howl. All right, thanks for watching.